Welcome back to another episode of the Level Up climbing series. I'm Marcus, a not-so-great climber from Vancouver, Canada, who's hoping to get a little bit better through analysis and an increased motivation for climbing. Happy New Year's to everyone. I know it's been a little while since I last posted, and this is from quite a while ago. This is from December 17th. But yeah, I've just been a little bit busy. A bunch of holiday stuff, some school application stuff. A little bit about myself is I'm trying to get into physiotherapy school, and so I had quite a few applications to get through. But let's get straight into climbing. We are back in high van today, and we're climbing this black 3 hex. So my main focus after falling was trying to get to the higher hold there instead of using the long slopey boy, and this made it just so much easier, and it was a pretty easy 3 hex. Overall, I was looking at these climbs at the time, and I was thinking that most of these looked pretty soft, pretty easy. Take this blue 4 hex, for example. I was pretty confident I was going to flash this. All the holds look pretty juggy, and I guess this is just a little bit of a theme for today, is that I feel like the grading system for indoors is always very different. I don't know how else to put it. Obviously, different setters, I feel like, are a big contributor to that. If you have a taller setter, shorter setter, or just their climbing styles. And it's just a little hard to track progress when grades are all over the place. And so that's just another reason that I'm trying to focus a lot more on learning movements and creating my own sense of progress, opposed to just focusing on grades. So this blue 4 hex was pretty easy, but nothing to be too excited about. This green 3 hex was one that I thought was going to be harder, and it did take me quite a few more attempts. It was not a flash. Even though it did look pretty easy, I couldn't tell if this was because I was a little bit injured. For those of you who don't know, I think I strained a lumbrical on my ring finger on my left hand. And so I was just trying to be a little bit more cautious here going into these crimps, and I couldn't quite figure out the sequence here. But on this attempt, I tried to go a lot more statically to that left hand hold and keeping my hips close to the wall, and it felt so much better. Just having my weight right under the hand holds, it made the hand hold feel so much better, and going nice and slowly to it, I just had so much more control. If you look at my previous attempts, I'm kind of using my momentum a little bit more. And so that's something I'm trying to focus on a little bit too, is trying to find that balance between static and dynamic climbing. I think as a shorter climber, I am usually pretty dynamic, but learning at what points I need to be more static is something I'm still trying to figure out. This pink 4 hex was also something I thought was not too bad. I was pretty confident I'd flash it. The holes are pretty good. I'd say also even better than how they look. So I was pretty happy to knock out those 2 4s just at the beginning of the session. And this purple 4 was one that originally I didn't think I was going to get on, but today I was feeling extra adventurous, and this one I thought was very solid. I thought it was such a cool set. So you start on these 2 volumes for your feet, and you throw and try and catch the next one. And at this point I told my brother, I'm pretty sure I hit this move within the next 3 tries. And he was like, no shot, I'll give you 10 tries. So this is my second attempt since then, and I managed to stick that move, which felt really good. And I really thought the next part was going to be pretty smooth sailing. But unfortunately, from here, this next hold is not as good as I thought it was going to be, and I ended up falling. Something I talked about in the last episode or 2 was the whole idea of integrating by parts, so trying to climb just the sections that you're stuck on sometimes. So here, as you saw, I just climbed up halfway just to try and figure out this top part. That way, when I do stick that first move again, I'll be a lot more confident in making these next moves. So I didn't realize while climbing, but I was able to look back at the video at the time and see what made that time feel so much easier. I think part of it was just being more comfortable with the move, as well as just putting my left foot up a little bit higher as I go for the hold instead of letting it drop down. and so that just allows me to weigh the right foot a little bit better, and I was feeling pretty good about it. So this here is my 8th attempt, and again my brother thought I could get it in 10, so I want to get it in 9 or less. So on this 9th attempt, I do finally manage to stick the move. I feel like normally I might have let go, but I'm quite competitive. And yeah, now we end up at that move that I was stuck on before, and my left foot comes up just a little higher, making sure it doesn't drop. And the rest was pretty easy. But this is just a reminder for other people. I really recommend doing some video analysis, or at least recording your climbs. You don't need to post it, you don't need to do anything with it, but it's often very hard to know exactly what your body is doing, and what you think you're doing might be very different from what you're actually doing. So I highly recommend doing some video analysis for any sport you're doing, whether that's climbing or anything else. This yellow 4 hex confused the heck out of me. The start wasn't too bad, but these next moves just don't really make any sense. You have no footholds on the other side of the wall, and both holds are pointing to the right. The finish hold is just a massive, gigantic sloper. And so you really have nothing stopping you from falling out to the right here. So I gave it a couple tries here, trying to figure out what in the world I'm supposed to do with these feet. But it was still very, very tricky. And I ended up just giving up and moving on to this blue 3 hex, which was right beside it. This one was kind of a cool set, honestly. Lots of body positioning and just trying to fit within this kind of box. But overall, it wasn't anything too difficult, and it was an easy flash. This was a pink 4 hex on the new set. Or actually, no, this wasn't on the new set. It was new for me though. Honestly, I thought this one was pretty easy as well. And as I was saying at the beginning of the video, I think the setting grades just vary so much. This pink 4, I'd say it would be a 3 hex to me. All the holds are pretty good. I won't even say there was that much power. It's just maybe a little bit longer than some others, and you don't necessarily have footholds, but the volumes are really good. So this was a pretty easy send for me, and I was pretty happy to have had, what, 4 hexes now? Now this green 2 hex is why I say grading makes no sense. I looked at this and I went, this was kind of hard. I don't even remember the last time I've fallen off a 2 hex, so seeing this just kind of blew my mind. Like, what is this? I didn't think it was that hard, but it was definitely a lot trickier than I thought. I feel like usually these kind of dyno-y coordination moves are ones that do take me a while, but I get relatively quickly. But this took me a lot of attempts, especially for a 2 hex. I thought this was insanely difficult. But yeah, as I'm going through, I'm just getting more comfortable on the wall. There, I'm sticking the foot, and I'm focusing on just sticking the foot and the hand. And I'm just getting more consistent with it. I think the main thoughts in my head are trying to go even more into the wall. And so once I stick it, I finally, the top's pretty trivial. But yeah, at the time, everyone at the gym was a little confused why it was graded so low. And eventually they did upgrade it to a 3 hex next week. So just a reminder to not pay too much attention to grades. This pink 4 hex was pretty tricky. It didn't really make any sense. And you can't see it on screen, but the next hold is just a jug at the top, basically. And I don't really understand how you're supposed to dyno to the top with these underclings. So we just gave that one attempt and finished our session. On this green 4 hex, you'll see I start with the right leg with this press, and I'm just having trouble getting my left foot up. This time I switched to a left leg and try and go left hand instead with this drop knee on the right. So we're in North Vancouver for this next session. It's a new day, if you can't tell. And that next hold just wasn't great. So we go back to resorting to starting with the right foot. This time I try and twist the hips a little bit more so I can get the left. And I chose this way just because I felt like I can use the left hold a little bit better. And using that left hold lets me get more stable so I can make these next moves. And this right crimp felt a lot worse than I was expecting, and I couldn't figure out where I was supposed to go from here besides just reach. And this was pretty bad because I just don't think I warmed up enough. I stuck with my warm-up schedule, but I didn't do as much on the wall climbing, and so I was feeling the exact same thing on my right ring finger that I did on my left. So I just taped it immediately, got off that climb, and now I was climbing just a little injured again. And it's a little frustrating having the same kind of injury. And so the rest of the session, I am in a mental shit. An absolute mental rut. But still, we're trying new things. I think, again, having recorded these videos, I am more in a groove of trying, or like I've been fostering a new mentality of, even if I don't necessarily want to, forcing myself to get on harder climbs and trying to not let my emotions dictate how I climb. So I was actually really happy with how much progress I was making on this black 5 hex. This last move though really didn't seem to make much sense. My foot's there on that volume, which actually feels really good. But the left hand feels really bad, and you basically have to be pressing really hard with that right foot to stay on the left there. And I just didn't feel like I was in a position where I could pull and rock myself over. So I went to see if I can make this move. This is another integration by parts section, so I just climbed to this part. My hands are actually crossed, but I don't think it would have made any difference. Even getting the left foot up there, I'm just not in a position to really pull. So we moved on, but I was still pretty happy with it. I didn't talk about it as much, but I did make quite a few changes between each attempt to get pretty far. And to this day, I still have not seen anyone send this. So I thought it was pretty hard. This ping 4 hex, I saw quite a few people try and struggled with. But for me, I thought it was actually really well set. It had a lot of moves that I really enjoy, starting with that thumb press on the right. And here I'm really just taking my time. I find this little back drop knee thing, which is something I feel like I never do. So seeing myself do movements that I'm not that comfortable with or not used to doing is actually really cool to see. Really shows that I'm getting a lot better throughout this process. So again, we're trying hard. We're on this pink 5 hex, and I don't understand what this move is besides just pull hard and reach. But the foot is just pretty high, and the feet aren't amazing, so it's hard to get enough weight over to the right. So instead we move on to this red 4 hex. The feet also were not amazing, as you see me slip. But I looked at the set and it looked pretty cool. So it starts with that move to that kind of ledge, and they're actually pretty good. And I thought this next move was pretty cool. You have to go pretty far to this next hold and flip the left hand. Flip. Unfortunately, I miss. On this next attempt, you'll watch me move my right foot a little further to the right so that I'm a little more balanced, and I managed to stick that flip. And so I get my feet up with the footholds, and I realize, what in the world is this next move? At first I thought you maybe press against the volume, maybe I can semi-static it, span it a little. But once that didn't work, I realized maybe I'm just supposed to dyno here. So we go for the dyno, and it actually feels not too bad. I had watched someone do it, and so I think knowing that it was the beta gave me a lot more confidence. That one felt really good, and I was so sure I was going to get it on this next attempt. And sure enough, I did. I focused on trying to get actually as high as I can so I can quickly do a pull-up so that I'm not swinging as much and I can stay nice and close to the wall. And I was really happy about that send. So my session was still again quite a bit better. This black 3 hex, though, was kind of upsetting me again. It was just a pretty far dyno. Again, I feel like these should be pretty easy, but I realized I almost never one-hand catch. So it was good practice for me, and it was quite a distance. But once I finally stuck it, actually, I was really happy to have gone this. Again, we're not caring too much about grades. It might just be a 3 hex, but I think for me, it was pretty far and something I'm not used to usually doing. So it was something I was really happy with. New movement down. This blue 4 hex was also one that I really, really enjoyed. I thought it was just so flowy, even just from that toe hook at the start. I think anytime I get a good toe hook in, I am happy because, again, something I've been trying to actively work on a little bit more. But overall, it just felt very flowy. I was feeling not the strongest, but I was feeling strong on the climb here. Even finding this heel hook, which was a little high. And I was excited to flash it, but I didn't. And I was pretty upset about that. If you see in the previous video, my right foot goes too far left, so on this attempt, I try and focus on getting that right foot a little bit higher and just full committing to that next hold. And luckily, I get the send next attempt. Now, this red 4 hex was pretty much what I wanted to do for the end of my session. My hands were feeling pretty tired. Again, I'm a little bit worried about the injury on the right hand, which I'll keep you guys posted about. But it just looked coordination-y, or I don't even know how to describe it. I couldn't even read it. How was I supposed to go from this corner to the other side of the wall here? So if you saw, I was debating if I start facing away from the wall or towards the wall, and I switched to facing away from the wall. And now I'm debating again, am I supposed to switch back to facing the wall? And there's a foot chip on the other side, and I'm not even sure how I'm supposed to use it. It just feels wrong. Like, it's on the outside part of my foot, so instead of being on my big toe, it's on like my pinky toe. So that to me made me think, oh, okay, I need to face the wall, so that way I can use the big toe on my right foot. So we try and stick this move, just hold it and lean. And it feels very stickable. And this looks so silly. I'm so sorry, guys. But that's just how climbing is sometimes. A little silly. But yeah, here I managed to stick it without the hand, just focused on standing up. And now I'm trying to use the little foothold to switch the feet here. But it's really hard to stay balanced because most of my balance here is coming from my left foot sticking out, as you see. And so bringing the feet here is pretty hard, especially since all my weight is on that right foot. I found it really hard to match the foot here. So we give it another go. Try to stay on the right. And switch the feet. And it just ends up being too much for me. So I try and opt for a different method. I ended up seeing beta from a girl who's probably, I don't know, like 9, 10, or 11. She's an absolute beast. I swear comp kids are built different. And she does this method instead. If you want to check her out on Instagram, it's Ella_climber4. But yeah, she manages to hit this move this way. And so eventually, after focusing on just making sure that I stay nice and close to the wall, I managed to stick it. And from there, it's still very non-trivial. This right-hand sloper is so bad. And then from there, I need to get my foot up onto the volume, which I had my hand on, and go up to this undercling at the top. Or, I don't know, is the so-called undercling if it's like a thumb press? I don't know, into this thumb press. But yeah, I'm having trouble getting this foot up, and I start falling off, and you can just hear me shout, which I thought was kind of funny. But yeah, eventually, I do slowly get the foot there, and it feels pretty good. And now it's just down for this last move, which I do manage to stick. So overall, it was a pretty good session.